The crimson sun was setting behind the twisted spires of an alien world when Marcus felt his ship's engines finally give out. The small exploration vessel crashed through the canopy of bioluminescent trees, sending sparks and smoke into the purple, twilight sky. He crawled from the wreckage, his body aching but alive, and stared up at the strange constellations above. Marcus had been a wanderer all his life, exploring the far reaches of space for the Terran Survey Corps. This uncharted planet was supposed to be his final assignment before retirement. Now, surrounded by glowing flora that pulsed like heartbeats and the distant sounds of unknown creatures, he wondered if he would ever see home again. The forest around him seemed alive in ways that defied explanation. Vines reached toward him. With curious tendrils and flowers the size of dinner plates opened to reveal crystalline centers that chimed softly in the breeze. His scanner was broken, his communicator dead, and night was falling fast as he stumbled through the undergrowth. Searching for shelter or any sign of civilization, the ground began to tremble beneath his feet. The tremors grew stronger, rhythmic, like massive footsteps approaching. Marcus pressed himself against a towering tree trunk just as she emerged from the shadows. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Standing nearly 12 feet tall, her skin was a pale silver blue that seemed to shimmer in the alien moonlight. Long white hair flowed like liquid mercury past her shoulders, and her eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of ancient wisdom and deadly strength. Intricate tattoos covered her muscular arms, telling stories in a language Marcus could not read. The Giantess wore armor crafted from some dark metal, adorned with bones and feathers from creatures he had never seen. A massive sword hung across her back, its blade etched with glowing runes. Every movement she made was fluid and graceful, despite her imposing size. Like a predator perfectly adapted to her environment, their eyes met across the clearing. Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. He had encountered many alien species in his travels, but never one that radiated such raw power and beauty. Most humans would have felt only fear in that moment. But Marcus saw something deeper in her glowing gaze. Without thinking, the words escaped his lips in a voice barely above a whisper. "You are the most beautiful being I have ever seen." The effect was immediate and startling. The Giantess froze, her eyes widening in what appeared to be shock. Her hand moved instinctively, too, the hilt of her sword, but stopped halfway. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, the night air crackling with tension. Then came the sound of more footsteps, heavy and deliberate. For more giants emerged from the forest, all warriors by their bearing and weapons. They surrounded Marcus quickly but carefully, their movements suggesting they were more interested in capturing than killing him. The first giantess, whom Marcus would later learn was called Zara, spoke to her companions in a melodic language that sounded like wind chimes and distant thunder. Marcus tried to speak, to explain that he meant no harm, but one of the warriors gestured for silence. With surprising gentleness for beings of their size, they lifted him from the ground and began to carry him deeper into the forest. As they traveled, Marcus caught glimpses of an incredible civilization hidden among the trees, structures that seemed to grow from the living wood itself, bridges of woven light spanning impossible distances, and creatures that defied his understanding of biology. The last thing he saw before exhaustion claimed him was Zara's face. Illuminated by the soft glow of bioluminescent moss, her expression unreadable but her eyes never leaving his, Marcus awoke, to find himself in a chamber unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls appeared to be carved from a single massive crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, and the air hummed with an energy that made his skin tingle. He was lying on a bed of woven fibers that felt softer than silk, and his injuries from the crash had been carefully tended. As he sat up, he noticed that his chest bore a new mark, an intricate symbol that glowed faintly against his skin, like a tattoo made of starlight. The design was beautiful but alien, resembling intertwined vines with thorns that seemed to move when he looked directly at them. "You bear the first mark of bonding," came a deep voice from the chamber's entrance. An elderly giant approached, his long beard adorned with small bones and crystals. His eyes held the weight of centuries, and when he spoke, his words carried the authority of absolute leadership. I am Elder Keth, keeper of the ancient laws. Your words to Zara have set in motion something that cannot be undone. Marcus struggled to understand. What words? I only said what I felt. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. The elder's expression softened slightly. In our culture, young wanderer, to call someone beautiful with true heart is not merely a compliment. It is a declaration of soul-deep recognition. Your words have bound you to Zara in ways your people do not understand. You have claimed her as your life mate, and she has accepted by allowing the mark to form. Before Marcus could protest, Zara entered the chamber. She had exchanged her warrior's armor for robes of deep purple silk that accentuated her ethereal beauty. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow from within, and the tattoos on her arms pulsed with the same rhythm as the mark on his chest. When their eyes met, Marcus felt a warmth spread through his entire being, as if something fundamental had shifted in the universe. The bonding has begun, she said, her voice like music played on crystal instruments. But it is not complete. You must understand what this means before we proceed. She approached him slowly, each step deliberate and graceful. My people mate for life, Marcus of the Wandering Stars. When souls recognize each other, they become two parts of a single whole. There is no separation, no divorce, no going back. Marcus found himself drawn to her in ways that went beyond mere physical attraction. Every fiber of his being seemed to resonate with her presence, as if he had been incomplete all his life without knowing it. What happens if I refuse? Elder Keth answered, grimly. The bond once begun cannot be severed without great pain to both parties. You would carry the mark forever, a reminder of what was lost. Zara would bear the shame of rejection before her people. But more than that, your souls would remain forever incomplete, searching for what was found and then abandoned. Zara stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I do not ask this lightly, wanderer. I have lived 3 centuries without finding my other half. When you spoke those words, when you saw beauty instead of fear, something awakened in me that I thought had died long ago. Her hand reached out to touch the mark on his chest, and electricity seemed to arc between them. The moment their skin made contact, Marcus was flooded with images and emotions that were not his own. He saw Zara as a child, training with weapons, twice her size. He felt her loneliness through decades of searching, her despair when other potential mates proved unworthy or afraid. He experienced her joy when she first heard his words, the recognition that struck her like lightning. I feel it too, he whispered, understanding flooding through him. The connection between them was real, deeper than anything he had ever imagined possible. His life of wandering the stars suddenly seemed like preparation for this moment. This meeting of souls across the vast darkness of space. Elder Keth began to chant in the ancient language, and the chamber filled with swirling lights that danced around them like living aurora. If you accept this bond willingly, the elder intoned, speak the words of acceptance, and let the ceremony begin. Marcus looked into Zara's glowing eyes and saw his future reflected there. I accept, he said, his voice strong and certain. I choose this bond, this life, this love. The lights exploded around them in a cascade of color and warmth, and Marcus felt the mark on his chest grow warm as matching symbols appeared on Zara's skin. They were bound now, linked by forces older than civilization itself, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same. The days following the initial bonding ceremony passed in a blur of new experiences and growing intimacy between Marcus and Zara. She taught him the basics of her people's language, while he shared stories of the stars and distant worlds. Their connection deepened with each passing hour, the marks on their skin glowing brighter whenever they touched. But their newfound happiness was not without challenges. Not all of Zara's people accepted the bond between their warrior princess and the small human wanderer. Chief among the dissidents was Nyx, a fierce giantess who had long harbored feelings for Zara and viewed Marcus as an unworthy interloper. Nyx stood nearly as tall as Zara, but with midnight black skin marked by scars from countless battles. Her crimson hair was woven with the teeth of slain beasts, and her eyes burned with jealousy and wounded pride. She had been Zara's training partner and closest friend before Marcus arrived, and his presence had shattered dreams she had nurtured for decades. "He is weak," Nyx declared publicly during a tribal gathering, her voice carrying across the great amphitheater carved into the living trees. "How can one so small and fragile protect our strongest warrior? How can he provide the children she deserves? This bonding makes a mockery of our ancient traditions." Elder Keth raised his staff for silence. "The bond has been recognized by the old magic. It cannot be disputed by mortal concerns." But even he looked troubled by the obvious disparity between the human and his chosen mate. Zara stood to defend her bondmate, but Marcus placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Let me prove myself," he said quietly. "There are trials that must be faced. I will face them." The elder nodded gravely. "Very well. The 3 trials of worthiness have not been invoked for 2 centuries, but the law allows it. You must prove your courage, your wisdom, and your devotion. Only then will all doubts be silenced." The first trial came at dawn. Marcus stood in a circle of standing stones, facing a creature called a shadow wolf, a predator from the deepest caves that stood as tall as a horse, but moved like liquid darkness. Its eyes glowed red with hunger, and its claws could rend metal. Like paper, the gathered tribe watched in silence as the beast stalked him, looking for weakness. Marcus had no weapons save his quick mind and the small energy pistol at his belt. As the creature lunged, he rolled aside and fired, but the energy bolt passed harmlessly through its shadowy form. "Physical weapons are useless," Zara called out. Unable to remain silent, the shadow wolf feeds on fear. Show no fear, and it has no power over you. Marcus steadied his breathing, remembering techniques learned in deep space exploration where panic could mean death. As the creature circled him again, he stood perfectly still, meeting its burning gaze with calm determination. To everyone's amazement, the shadow wolf slowed, then stopped, then bowed its head in recognition of a fellow predator who knew no fear. The second trial tested his wisdom. Elder Keth presented him with an ancient puzzle box, its surface covered in shifting symbols that rearranged themselves whenever he touched them. "This contains the heart of our first queen," the elder explained. "Open it using wisdom, not force, and you prove your mind worthy of our princess." Marcus studied the box for hours while the tribe waited. He noticed that the symbols seemed to respond to the rhythm of his heartbeat, and more importantly, too, the pulse of the bond mark on his chest. When he placed the box against his heart and synced his breathing with Zara's across the circle, the symbols aligned and the box opened with a soft chime. But it was the third trial that would prove most challenging. Nyx stepped forward, her great sword gleaming in the firelight. "I invoke the right of combat for the heart of Zara. Let steel decide who is more worthy." The amphitheater erupted in gasps and murmurs. Combat trials were rare and dangerous, often ending in death for one or both participants. But ancient law could not be denied. "I cannot match your strength," Marcus admitted, looking up at the towering warrior. "But I will not yield what we have found together." Zara rushed to his side, her eyes bright with tears. "This is not necessary. I choose him freely. My heart chooses him." "Hearts can be wrong," Nyx replied coldly. "Let combat reveal the truth." As the 2 fighters faced each other in the ring of stones, Marcus realized that strength alone would not win this battle. He would need to use every advantage his human ingenuity could provide, and hope that the bond he shared with Zara would give him the power to overcome impossible odds. The fight that followed would be remembered in tribal legends for generations to come. The combat circle was lit by dozens of floating luminescent orbs, casting dancing shadows on the faces of the assembled tribe. Marcus stood across from Nyx, acutely aware of the vast difference in their sizes and capabilities. She towered over him, her massive sword catching the light like captured lightning, while he held only a ceremonial blade provided by Elder Keth. "Begin when ready," the elder announced, his voice heavy with concern for the small human who dared challenge their greatest warrior. Nyx moved first, her blade whistling through the air in an arc that would have cleaved Marcus in two. But he wasn't there when it arrived, having rolled aside at the last possible second. His smaller size, which seemed like such a disadvantage, actually allowed him greater mobility in the confined space. "You cannot run forever, little star wanderer," Nyx taunted, pressing her attack. Her sword carved deep grooves in the stone where Marcus had been standing moments before. But Marcus wasn't running, he was studying her patterns, looking for weaknesses. During his years exploring hostile worlds, he had learned that survival often depended on finding the unexpected advantage. As Nyx raised her weapon for another devastating blow, he noticed something crucial. The bond mark on his chest was growing, warmer, pulsing in rhythm with Zara's heartbeat. "Feel my strength," Zara whispered from the edge of the circle, her own mark glowing brightly. "We are one now, beloved. My power is yours." Suddenly, Marcus felt a surge of energy flowed through him. His reflexes quickened, his strength increased, and he began to move with a fluid grace that matched Zara's own fighting style. When Nyx's next attack came, he didn't dodge, he parried, his small blade somehow stopping her massive sword in mid-swing. The crowd gasped in amazement. No human should have been able to match a giantess warrior in combat, yet Marcus was not only holding his own, he was beginning to gain the advantage. The bond between him and Zara was sharing more than emotions now, it was sharing abilities. Nyx realized what was happening, and her attacks became more desperate, more reckless. "This is cheating," she roared. "He uses magic, not skill." "The bond is not magic," Elder Keth replied firmly. "It is the oldest truth we know. Two souls, united, become greater than their separate parts." As the battle continued, Marcus found himself moving in perfect synchronization with Zara, even though she remained outside the circle. When he struck, it was with her lifetime of training. When he defended, it was with her warrior's instincts. They had become, in that moment, truly one being, fighting in two bodies. The end came swiftly. As Nyx raised her sword for a final, desperate attack, Marcus stepped inside her guard and placed the point of his blade against her throat. He could have killed her easily, but instead he stepped back and lowered his weapon. "Yield the victory to your courage," he said quietly. "But I will never yield the bond we share." Nyx stared at him for a long moment, then slowly lowered her own sword. "You fight with her heart," she admitted grudgingly. "Perhaps that makes you worthy after all." She turned to Zara, her expression softening. "Forgive me, old friend. I spoke from jealousy, not wisdom." The tribe erupted in cheers as Zara rushed into the circle and swept Marcus into her arms. The bond marks on both their bodies blazed with golden light, and everyone present could feel the power of their connection radiating outward, like waves of pure love. But their celebration was short-lived. From the dark forest came a sound that chilled the blood, a howling that spoke of ancient evil and hungry malice. The trees at the edge of the village began to wither and die, their bioluminescence fading to black. "The Shadow Horde," Elder Keth whispered, his face pale with fear. "They have found us at last." Creatures of living darkness poured from between the trees, their forms shifting and writhing like nightmares given substance. They had no fixed shape, but their hunger was palpable, and they moved toward the village with the inexorable certainty of a plague. All warriors formed defensive positions, Zara commanded, her voice carrying the authority of born leadership. As the shadow creatures approached, their weapons passed harmlessly through the writhing forms. "Physical weapons are useless," Elder Keth called out. "These beings feed on life force itself. They can only be harmed by the pure energy of bonded souls." Marcus felt the truth of those words as his connection to Zara grew stronger in the face of mortal danger. The bond mark on his chest was now blazing like a small sun, and where its light touched the shadow creatures, they recoiled in apparent pain.
"Out together,"
Zara said, taking his hand. "We faced them together." As their fingers intertwined, the light from their marks merged and expanded, creating a barrier of pure energy that the shadow creatures could not cross. Other bonded pairs in the tribe joined them, their own lights adding to the growing shield of protection. The battle that followed would test not just their courage, but the very nature of the bond they shared. In facing the ancient darkness together, Marcus and Zara would discover that their love was more than just an emotion. It was a force of creation itself. It's capable of holding back the void that sought to devour all life. As dawn approached and the shadow creatures retreated into the deep forest, the tribe looked upon their newest member with new respect. The small human had not only proven his worth in single combat, but had helped save them all from annihilation. The final ceremony could begin.